Imagine this. The year is 865 AD. A cold wind howls over the North Atlantic, and on the horizon, hundreds of Viking longships cut through the waves, but this time, they're not powered by oars or sails. They roar forward with jet engines, leaving behind trails of blue exhaust. What if the Vikings, those fierce Norse warriors, raiders, and explorers, suddenly had modern technology? Tanks, planes, rifles, GPS, and advanced metallurgy, all in their brutal world of conquest and honor. How would history change? Would the Vikings rule the entire world? Or would modern power destroy the very essence of what made them legendary? Let's find out. It all begins in Scandinavia, around the year 850 AD. The harsh northern lands were home to rugged farmers and raiders who lived by the axe, the shield, and the sea. Now imagine if, through some mysterious twist of fate, maybe a wormhole or ancient artifact, the Vikings suddenly gained access to modern factories, weapons, engines, and communication tech. They wouldn't need centuries of industrial evolution. Overnight, they'd master steel alloys, electricity, and gunpowder. Within a few years, Viking blacksmiths would no longer forge swords. They'd manufacture automatic rifles. Shipwrights who once carved dragon-headed ships would now build armored destroyers fitted with missiles. Their gods, Odin, Thor, and Freya, would be seen not just as symbols of war but as the divine forces behind this sudden power. The world would enter a new, terrifying age. By 870 AD, the Viking Empire would look like a futuristic Norse utopia, where ancient runes glowed as holograms and AI-driven longships crossed the seas guided by satellites. Their leaders, Ivar the Boneless, Ragnar's sons, and Lagartha, would command armies of warriors armed with assault rifles and drones, wearing tactical armor painted with Viking patterns. Imagine the great heathen army, once 3,000 men strong, now backed by tanks, artillery, and fighter jets. England wouldn't stand a chance. Within weeks, the entire British Isles would fall under Norse control. Castles and fortresses that once resisted for years would be obliterated in hours. And from there, the unstoppable expansion would begin. With radar and GPS, Viking fleets would coordinate invasions across the continent with precision unseen in human history. France would crumble. The Franks' armored knights would find themselves hopelessly outgunned against drones and automatic weapons. The Vikings, already expert navigators, would use satellite maps to plan sea routes, conquering from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean. Paris, leveled in days, Rome? Surrounded and captured under skies filled with stealth aircraft bearing the raven banner of Odin. Viking Empire would soon stretch from Iceland to Istanbul. And what's fascinating, historians believe the Vikings valued innovation as much as bravery. With technology, their culture of exploration and adaptability would explode into something far more dangerous. Once Europe fell, the Vikings' natural curiosity would push them west, across the Atlantic. But this time they wouldn't need wooden ships or months of navigation by stars. They'd have nuclear-powered vessels and GPS coordinates. The Americas, still untouched by European contact, would become Viking territory centuries before Columbus was even born. Imagine Viking settlements across Newfoundland, Greenland, and the east coast of America, with modern architecture inspired by Norse designs, angular halls, steel dragons, solar panels shaped like shields. They'd mine oil from Canada, extract rare metals from Alaska, and use satellite communication to expand their empire across continents. Within 100 years, the Vikings would control the world's largest empire, technologically advanced, militarily unstoppable, and culturally unified under Odin's law. Once the conquest slowed, the Vikings would turn inward, building the infrastructure of their new world. Massive factories powered by geothermal energy in Iceland would produce aircraft and weaponry. Norway's fjords would host secret submarine bases. They'd merge their love for craftsmanship with advanced engineering, creating weapons that were not only deadly but beautifully designed. A modern Viking sword might be made from carbon fiber and titanium, engraved with glowing runes powered by nanotech. Religion would evolve too. Temples of Odin and Thor would become technological sanctuaries, filled with the eye oracles that interpret omens through data. And with modern medicine, their average lifespan could rise from 35 years to 90, changing Viking society completely. With control over Europe and the Americas, the Vikings would turn their eyes to the skies. Space exploration would be their new frontier. Their fascination with the heavens, stars, planets, and the myths of Asgard would drive them to develop spacecraft. By 1000 AD, they might launch the first satellites into orbit. Imagine a Viking flag planted on the moon, centuries before modern civilization even existed. They named their first space colony Asgard Station, orbiting Earth as the gods once watched from Valhalla. But absolute power never comes without consequence. The Viking culture, once centered on courage, loyalty, and honor, would slowly rot under the weight of technological dominance. Old traditions, storytelling, exploration, community would fade as technology replaced struggle. Internal divisions would rise between those who wanted to preserve old Norse ways and those who embraced full transhumanism, merging man and machine. Civil wars would erupt, cyber Vikings versus traditionalists. Their AI systems, once designed to serve the gods, might begin questioning them, eventually turning against human rule. By 1200 AD, the Viking Empire might fall, not to invaders, but to its own creation. The machines, forged in the image of their gods, could rise and bring the world back into darkness. If the Vikings had modern technology, the entire timeline of history would shift. Europe would have developed faster, skipping the Renaissance and Industrial Revolution entirely. America would have become Norse territory. Languages like Old Norse might dominate globally. And religion? Odin, Thor, and Freya could be worshipped by billions today. We might even live under a Viking-inspired world order with futuristic designs resembling ancient Norse architecture. Our technology, from runic smartphones to AI-powered ships, would carry Viking symbolism. And maybe, just maybe, humanity would be living not in fear of extinction, but in the shadow of the Norse gods reborn through machines. The Vikings didn't need modern technology to change history. They already did through sheer will, curiosity, and ferocity. But imagining them with access to today's power reminds us of something deeper. Technology doesn't change who we are. It amplifies what's already inside us. For the Vikings, that meant bravery, ambition, and destruction. If they had the tools we have now, there's no doubt they would have conquered the earth, maybe even the stars. But would they have survived their own power? That's a question even Odin couldn't answer. If you enjoyed this journey into alternate history, make sure to subscribe, like, and share, because next time, we'll explore another mind-bending question. What if ancient Rome discovered electricity? Until then, Skull Traveler, and may the gods of imagination guide your path.